All right, well, good afternoon. I want to welcome everyone here today. I want to thank my colleagues from our Senate Republican Conference who are here. It is a new year. Of course, last week, sort of the ceremonial start to session. This is sort of the first, what I call the first work week, where we get back at it. Obviously, the governor is going to deliver her State of the State tomorrow. I think you heard from my colleague, Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins this morning. But it is, we have an elections package on today. But we're here to talk about our agenda, the Senate Republican agenda, this conference's priorities today. You're going to hear from two great leaders in our conference. You're going to hear from Senator Tom O'Mara, our ranker on the Finance Committee, and someone who, within a few days, is going to really dive into, once the budget is presented and the budget hearings come out, we sort of lose him here in this room for a couple of weeks while he sits through the interminable series of budget hearings. But he is a great voice for our conference when it comes to the budget and this conference's priorities, and I would say the priorities of most New Yorkers, many New Yorkers. And obviously, you're also going to hear from Senator Canzonieri Fitzpatrick, a great leader from Long Island, who's going to talk about additional priorities of this conference. And we're going to roll out several specific legislative policy-based initiatives throughout the session. Today's a bit more of maybe an overview by me, but the one item you're going to hear over and over again, you've already heard it, we heard it last session, the term is affordability, right? You're going to hear about affordability so often that in some ways it will lose its meaning to a lot of people. Just hear affordability. And yet, I would tell you that while my colleagues and I will both use that word, we obviously have very different ideas of what that word means. Now, there's a lot of underneath as to what makes life less affordable here in New York, right? It's not one thing. In fact, if it was one thing, our job would be a lot easier. It's a multitude of things, from regulations to policies to bureaucratic issues to pending laws that we've passed in this body. But keep in mind that the Democrats have been in charge of both houses of this legislature and the governor's mansion since 2019. And that might seem like yesterday, but it's not yesterday. 7 years ago? 7 years ago. So if New York is in fact unaffordable, as even they acknowledge, then they have to acknowledge it's partly because of their policies. That is why, since they've taken over, you've heard the numbers, you know the numbers, and if you forgot, I'll tell you. They've spent over $80 billion more in the state budget. The state budget today is over $80 billion more than it was January of 2019. Now, has that accelerated or impacted the cost of doing business, the cost of living here in New York? I will tell you yes. High-tax states tend to be expensive. You cannot say that you are trying to make life more affordable unless you are for cutting taxes and putting people's hard-earned money back in their pockets. The quickest, fastest way to make life more affordable for New Yorkers is to let them keep more of their money. Plain and simple. They are going to argue about how much to raise taxes. That will be one of the cornerstone debates in this budget. And on whom? You can't enact burdensome new regulations and say we're fighting for small businesses. You can't enact costly, nebulous, ambiguous energy policies and then say you're fighting to lower people's utility bills. All of these things contribute to why New York State is certainly one of the most expensive states in the country. I've said it many times. Some of my colleagues probably, it's become like a Rob Ortt cliche. But if we could spend our way to affordability, if this government could spend enough money to make life more affordable, we would be the most affordable state in the country. We certainly would be more affordable today than we were in 2019. We'd be $84 billion more affordable. But we're not. We know that's not true. So this conference has a very different idea of how to make life more affordable. When it comes to energy policy, when it comes to regulations, when it comes to taxes. And you're going to hear those a lot over the next several weeks. And you're going to hear some of that from my colleagues today. We talk about making life safer for New Yorkers. Obviously, my colleagues and I and us have a very different view of what safety means, what public safety means. And I just think it's important for New Yorkers to remember, and I think it's important for all of you to hold them accountable when they say we have to make life more affordable by fighting against Washington. Washington did not make New York less affordable. Period. New York State has been unaffordable, expensive, chasing people out of here for years, even during the 4 years of the great presidency of Joe Biden. I say great jokingly. New York State has been a high-tax, high-expense state, over-regulated, losing people for decades. So they can try to reframe it, and that's politics. They're going to try to make you think it's Washington's fault. We're fighting against Washington. That's why New York State's not affordable. That's why New York State's so expensive. That's why New York City is so expensive and overrun by crime. Because of Washington. It's just flat out not true. It's just flat out not true. It's obfuscation. They're trying to change. I get it. I know what they're trying to do, and so do all of you. And so do most New Yorkers, or they should. They don't want to talk about their policies, how their policies, like the CLCPA, like the All Electric Buildings Act, how their regulations, how increasing taxes has a trickle-down impact on the cost of goods and services. Whether your tax bracket goes up or not, it impacts employers, whether they hire people, it impacts the cost of goods. They have contributed to the increase in New York State over the past 7 years. And now they want people to believe that they are going to fix it. It's the greatest, bait and switch. You see it all the time. I broke it. I messed this up. And now I'm asking you to trust me to fix it. And they're going to try to fix it by doubling down on the very policies that got us into this mess in the first place. So our conference is ready to work, certainly with those on the other side. And there are Democrats over there, I have no doubt. They probably aren't brave enough to say so, but I have no doubt that they agree with some of the things we're going to talk about here today and over the session. I just don't know if there are enough of them. And obviously our focus come November is going to make sure there's less of them and more of us. Because I believe that is the only way we're going to get some common sense policies to actually make this state more affordable for working New Yorkers. That's the only way. I wish it wasn't true, but it is. And now you're going to hear from a good friend of mine, our finance ranker, a leader not only on a lot of these issues, but certainly on the energy topic. And I really think the energy space, utility bills, the CLCPA, the disastrous energy policy that we have in this state, there's been we have a lot of good voices on that. But someone who's been talking about this for a very long time is our next speaker, my friend, our ranker on finance, Senator Tom O'Meara.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you all for coming out today on this very important topic. And the leader's spot on. Everybody's talking about affordability. What does it mean? What do we do about it? There's really two different approaches. There's the Democrat approach. There's our approach, which is to actually make things less expensive. The Democrat approach is to take money out of your pocket and give it to somebody else so they can afford to pay that exorbitant bill, that exorbitant utility cost. We lost the majority in the 2018 election. 2019, since then, one-party control in this state. Well, the first two major things we're going to talk about today, two of the major things that the other side did, CLCPA, so-called Green New Deal of New York, and criminal justice reforms. There have been disasters. The CLCPA has driven up energy costs. It's been the number one issue in my office for over a year now with those costs. It's not just affecting homeowners, renters in their residences, it's affecting businesses. There's an alarming trend of manufacturers packing up and leaving New York State. Manufacturers that have been here a long time have operations in other states, choosing to consolidate, or just choosing to get the hell out of New York, moving their operations to other states. Just this past week, on Friday, it was announced that Gunlock Furniture Company in Wayland, New York, in Steuben County, in my district, closing up, not going out of business, moving their production to other states. Gunlock Furniture has been in Wayland, New York for over 120 years, producing high-end office furniture equipment. In fact, they designed an ergonomic office desk chair for President John F. Kennedy because he had back issues. It's a famous company, leaving New York. It's the cost of doing business. Manufacturers using a high load of energy are the most impacted, and those are the ones we see most moving out of this state. We have just continued to make things more expensive with the CLCPA. The all-electric building mandates is going to make things more expensive. We terminated the 100-foot rule last year to hook up a new home to gas. That's gone, making home ownership more expensive. We need to repeal the electric vehicle mandate. In 2035, we're only going to be able to buy an electric vehicle. The school bus mandates, electric school buses, will be the largest ever mandate upon our schools. Most of our schools, at least in the rural areas that I represent, really can't even get the power to their bus garages to even think about doing this. But it's these utopian dreams of the Democrat majorities that have got us into this situation that's just going to make things more expensive. And for schools, two-year extensions is not going to do it. It's not going to be enough. The concerns and the fears are still there. I hear it from my school districts every day. We need to repeal the Cap and Invest program. Not that it's up and running yet, but we need to make sure that doesn't happen. It's only going to drive the costs of all goods in the state of New York. I have a bill to return the excess surcharges collected by utility companies that they're holding for NYSERDA to do some of this Green New Deal stuff. It's hundreds of millions of dollars. I have a bill that if that money's not being utilized, return it to the ratepayers. Why do we continue to raise rates on these ratepayers? We need to stop making things more expensive. A famous social commentator in our country's history, Will Rogers, famously said, "If you find yourself in a hole, stop digging." We need to stop spending in New York. We don't have a revenue problem. The increases in our budget under one-party control, all state funds has gone up in their first budget year from $100 million to now about $150 billion. Billion to billion. 50% increase in 6 years. Yeah, we had some inflation for a year or two in there, but not to that extent. And the cost just keeps continuing to rise. So it's with these bills we need to repeal on the Green New Deal, reset. When we lost the majority in 2018, I was the chairman of the Environmental Conservation Committee where the CLCPA bill was pending. And I refused to move it because there is no plan. There never has been a plan. There is no cost-benefit analysis of what this is going to cost. Still hasn't been a cost-benefit analysis on what this is going to cost New Yorkers, yet every New Yorker sees it in their utility bill every month when they open it up. It's real, and it's being driven by the policies of the Democrat majorities in this state. I want to thank the leader for giving me an opportunity to speak here, and I'll introduce our next speaker, Senator Patricia Canzoneri Fitzpatrick.
In the few years that I've been here, I've realized that many of the things that we speak about on this side of the aisle come true just a few months later on the other side of the aisle. We've been talking about affordability since I got here, and now that's all I'm hearing the governor talk about, because she's realized that this side of the aisle is onto something, that we have some answers. What happened with the CLCPA, you've just heard about it, how much it's affected every utility bill. And what are they talking about now? Well, maybe we should think about reinforcing the grid. Maybe we should think about extending some of these deadlines. And we've been saying that for years, and they're finally listening. On this side of the aisle, we proposed not taxing tips and overtime, to put more money back in the pockets of our constituents, as our leader just said. And what's now happened, the governor is now saying something about it, and Jack Martin's on this side of the aisle, along with many of our members, co-sponsor that legislation, and it's been out there for 18 months. And she finally realized, maybe this is a good idea, maybe I should jump on that bandwagon. I submit, and we spoke about this on Long Island just in December, we had an affordability conference. And at the start of our presentation, I made a statement about how public safety has now trickled down to affordability. And what do I mean by that? We started with cashless bail. We started with no accountability for criminals. Criminals walked into Target, Home Depot, emptied the shelves. And what did we do? Our business owners were forced to allow them to walk out with that merchandise because of the safety of their employees. And what did that do to us? Home Depot, Target, every other retailer had to raise their prices on the goods to the rest of us who actually spent the money and paid for those goods. Their insurance costs went up because now their inventory was overturning and they didn't have the profits. And there was a risk to every business because of those people walking in and stealing that merchandise. So who's paying for that? All of us. Higher insurance costs, higher prices of goods. So what they started with cashless bail has now trickled down into an affordability crisis that now, as the leader said, we created a problem, let's see if we can fix it. And now they're starting to listen to us about the fact that New Yorkers are leaving in droves. Just last week at the Long Island State of the Region, our comptroller, Tom DiNapoli, said that leaving New York is prominent, but on Long Island, that age group between 18 and 34 are actually staying. And it made me think, why? Because we have county executives on Long Island who are all about public safety and not raising taxes. They have the blueprint for what to do to keep people here in New York. So why aren't they doing it? Because they'd have to admit that maybe we made a mistake. But we can see it on Long Island that that's what's working. Keep people safe and allow them to keep their money by not raising taxes. We'd have a lot more people staying here. Once those businesses lose that Senator O'Mara mentioned, once they leave, they don't come back. And what do they take with it? They take with it jobs. They take with it tax revenue for the state. They leave empty store buildings so our landlords suffer. It is, again, the trickle-down effect that is now spiraling out of control. And unless they do something on the other side, but maybe if they listened to us a few years ago, things wouldn't be so bad. The MTA, consistently taxing, raising prices. They just overhauled all their prices. They've restricted how quickly or how long the ticket stays active. Congestion pricing continues. Has it worked? Do we have less congestion? Is it worth it that businesses are leaving? My constituents don't think so. I have to tell you that anti-Semitism continues to be an issue in my district. People are fearful for their safety. They don't go out. When public safety suffers, people don't go to the store. They don't go see their family. They don't go to the parks. They don't enjoy the beautiful things that this great state has to offer. How is it that we rolled back the protections of what goes on for our Jewish citizens, and our governor stays silent? Her silence is deafening, and I can tell you my constituents are hearing it. Senator Weber and I co-sponsor S 1943, which would strengthen the protections for the houses of worship. It's the least we can do to protect people when they want to go to their house of worship, that we protect them and allow them to have the American dream of enjoying that they can celebrate their faith without fear of being harmed. Families and small businesses don't need more mandates, they don't need more taxes, and they don't need more excuses. They need real solutions. And I am always proud to be part of this conference because we have predicted what's going to happen. We have come up with the solutions, and now we just need the other side to realize that maybe we're onto something. Maybe we have some ideas. So I tell you that I'm proud to stand with my colleagues, and I know under the leadership of Senator Ort, we can do great things in this state if we're allowed the opportunity. Thank you.
Senator Canzonieri Fitzpatrick, thank you very much. Senator O'Mara, to my colleagues, I'll just close before we take questions. Something Senator Canzonieri Fitzpatrick said that was interesting to me. She said, and she's right, and this isn't the only one, and I know she knows that, we were using the term affordability and talking about how expensive this state was several years ago. And then all of a sudden the governor and others start parroting that here. They start using that argument. And that's happened before. I just wish they would listen to more than just the word, because they go, oh, yeah, you're right, that's a good term. See, they only can see it in the political term. They need to do a little deeper dive and actually start enacting policies. It isn't, again, it's not how much you could use the term affordability. If only we say it enough times, maybe the state will become more affordable. People are leaving this state. The ironic thing is the people who are leaving are the people who can afford to leave. There's a lot of folks that I represent, they can't afford to go. Their kids are in school, maybe they have sick parents, they have a company, or maybe they just have nowhere to go, and they're on the margins as it is. They would like to. I mark my words. If we passed a bill that said everyone gets a U-Haul, we'd have a lot less people overnight in the state. People would like to leave, but sometimes they can't. They deserve somebody in this building, on the second floor, in the assembly, fighting for them. Somebody who understands that, yeah, we want to do good things, we want to do big things, but we need someone fighting for them to put more money in their pocket, to allow them to run their business, to hire more people, keeping taxes down, not passing additional mandates onto our school districts, driving up school taxes, which is the largest property tax that anybody pays in the state of New York. And by the way, most of these things do not, I would argue, they don't make or haven't made our life better. They haven't made our life better. The CLCPA, it is a nebulous notion about what the actual benefit to the cost. They can't tell us the cost, and they can't tell us the benefit. All they tell me is we can't afford not to do it. That's a non-answer. That's a non-answer. And so we're going to continue to talk about affordability. We're going to talk about energy, which is, I think, a huge piece of the affordability talk. Taxes, we have a policy that we are working on right now that's going to give every New Yorker, regardless of what they make, every New Yorker will get a tax cut under our policy. We have policies that are going to, we're going to be talking about elections today. That's what we do every first day we're back. Elections. I don't know who can't vote in the state of New York. I honestly don't know. I'm at a loss for who is trying to vote and can't vote in New York State in 2026. Find me this person. That's my charge to all of you. Find me somebody who cannot vote under the current laws that we have in place. It's nonsense. It's political pageantry. Our republic is at stake, so we're passing these election laws to protect it. When what it really is just trying to help them at the ballot box. It's partisan electioneering masqueraded as election policy. We would just do something simple. Everyone has to show ID in New York. You want to vote? Show ID. It's 2026. You don't have ID? Perfect. We have bills that will give you a free state ID so you can vote. I would love it if the federal government made Election Day a holiday. That would also help a lot, I think, too. But the bottom line is ID. And anyone who says that people that are voting don't have ID, I would say most times they are full of it. There's no chance. You think about the number of things you need ID for in 2026. The basic things you need ID for in 2026. I can't speak to 1960 and how some of those laws might have been used in the past. But in 2026, if I pull off anybody in the city of Rochester or here in Albany off the street, and they're a legal residing New Yorker, I'm willing to bet they have some form of ID that will allow them to cast a vote in our elections. And again, if they don't worry about it, sir or ma'am. We'll provide one for you because we want you to vote. And we want to make sure your vote's counted. And we want to make sure that your vote is counted for you. So that's the difference on another area for this conference. But you're going to hear a lot more about these issues as we go forward. I want to thank our speakers, my colleagues,